One of the big questions that watchdogs have had is why Solicitor Dan Johnson and his staff spent so much money across the United States and really around the globe. Of the documents we've gone through so far, we have seen purchases from New York to Las Vegas, the Galapagos Islands to Amsterdam. With the schoolroom map and a few dozen thumbtacks, we're pinpointing the locations we've spotted in bank statements so far. WIS tried to find out and track Chaplin down to a home in Fairfield County. You Miss Chaplin? I'm with WIS. Where the door,
like to talk to you about your travel agency, please,
was shut on us.
Putting together a story. You don't care who it hurts.
You don't think they're important?
You don't care if it's true or not.
They're not important questions, though?
Not to me, they ain't.
This complaint is not the first one against S&D. Since March of last year, almost a dozen complaints have been filed, and many of them contain similar allegations.
There seems to be a stigma that what you're doing here is fraudulent.
If there was anything fraudulent there, where would I be now? In jail, right?
With everything going on, wondering about Uber purchases. Have you ever purchased any Uber rides that weren't for county business with county funds?
Yes, sir.
Does Mr. Kane live here, Councilman Kane?
No, he does not.
If I were to travel back in time to 2014, find you, and tell you that 3 years later, this case would still not have gone to trial, what would you have told me? But with an increased number of old buses going up in flames, Spearman is losing sleep, and she says keeping those buses on the road is literally playing with fire.
I'm called a hero. I don't feel like a hero.
Teresa Strobel still remembers the morning of May 9th, 2017. Well,
my route is in the Greer area.
It was a pretty typical morning for the Spartanburg County bus driver. With a bus full of students, her mind was on the Bible. She'd just finished reading the book of Chronicles that morning.
So I was talking to the Holy Spirit about that and thanking Him and all that.
And Strobel says the Holy Spirit guided her through what happened just minutes later.
I saw a student standing in the back, and my first thought was fight, but I said, what are y'all doing? And then that's when another 9th grader said, Ms. Strobel, the bus is on fire. I think I did like a quick gasp. I need to find a place where I could get them all safely, and I drove a little farther, saw the car wash pulled up in there.
It couldn't have been more than 45 seconds from the time I got out of the bed till I actually got into the yard.
Meanwhile, the commotion caught David Porter's attention. He lives across the street from where the bus ended up.
I ran out and I saw a school bus on fire.
A fire so hot and so intense there was nothing Porter could do but document the carnage, to give the coroner an idea of exactly what happened.
I thought everyone was dead. I had that sinking feeling that everyone was dead.
Little did he know, a heroic bus driver had quickly gotten all the students out and led them to a safe distance down the street. Later that day, she saw Porter's video.
The first time I saw it, I turned my head.
The state superintendent of education saw the video too.
Well, I remember the look on my staff's faces when they come in to tell me that we've had another incident. And then when I saw the video, you know, it was very scary. I want us to do the right thing.
The right thing to Molly Spearman, replacing buses like this one, a 1995 Thomas Type D. Spearman says back in the mid-90s, the state of South Carolina bought about 2,000 of those rear-engine 1995 buses. And now, 20 years later, about half of those buses are still on the road, and Molly Spearman says that's a problem.
The issues are with the engine being in the back, and if they get hot, smoke, and that heat can cause problems.
The state calls them thermal events, and there have been 108 since 1995. 86 of those were in Type D buses. New data sent to WIS details the various bus fires since 2013.
Man in South North.
The state says a short in the rear heater motor caused the fire in Spartanburg County. Before that, this fire at Dutch Fork Elementary. Also a 1995 Thomas Type D bus. The document shows a couple more thermal events in the Beaufort area in the past few years, some in Richland, Aiken, and Sumter too.
We need about $34 million a year dedicated to the replacement of buses.
Months ago, Governor Henry McMaster vetoed about $20 million in surplus lottery funds that would have gone to buying new buses. As a new year of school begins, lawmakers still haven't taken up that veto. Even though Spearman hopes lawmakers will override the governor's veto when they return in January, she does agree with the governor that they need a permanent fix instead of one-time money.
We need the legislature to understand that we need a recurring line item for bus replacement. The state of South Carolina is growing, and the $34 million really just meets the replacement of where we are now.
It'll cost about $102 million to replace the Type D 1995 buses alone.
Holy Spirit is my helper.
It's a bus that Strobel and her students survived on a day that's still burned in her memory.
One thing that comes back to my mind, when I was in college, I heard a poem a lot.
And on that day, she thought of the poem again. Quote, "I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it. Give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it." One of the big questions that watchdogs have had is why Solicitor Dan Johnson and his staff spent so much money across the United States and really around the globe. Well, tonight we wanted to help visualize that global spending. This might take a second. Of the documents we've gone through so far, we have seen purchases from New York to Las Vegas, the Galapagos Islands to Amsterdam. With the schoolroom map and a few dozen thumbtacks, we're pinpointing the locations we've spotted in bank statements so far. Keep in mind, the documents show public funds are being spent on hotels, flights, gas, food, etc. in these places. Was the travel, though, to a legitimate conference or to work on a case with international ties? Right now, we just don't know. And now let's look at a couple of them. And let's start across the pond in London, where Solicitor Johnson's card was used to book a room at a hotel on the edge of the city's iconic Trafalgar Square. $279 in December 2016. On to Germany now. The office paid for a flight to Frankfurt in 2014 and a flight to Munich in July 2016. North to Helsinki, Finland. The office booked a hotel there in December 2016. In Vienna, Austria, in late 2011, records seem to show that Johnson's account was used to buy a phone. Records also show the office seemed to buy gas and about half a dozen Uber rides in the Netherlands. Back in the New World, a hotel in Bogota, Colombia for $848 last September. One in Quito, Ecuador last April for $657. Then the exotic Galapagos Resort for $912 last February. In a few-minute interview earlier this week, Solicitor Dan Johnson defended himself. He said that he isn't worried about what will happen to him, and he said if he did anything wrong, he will correct it. And to be clear, it's very possible he has legitimate explanations then that he and his staff were doing county business on some of these trips and with some of the purchases. But at this point, that is still unknown. One more note, I spoke to Florence attorney Patrick McLaughlin today, and here's what he told me about this situation. I'm not sure how traveling to the Galapagos or Bogota is going to help the citizens of Richland and Kershaw counties, end quote. We will continue to investigate all these documents over the coming weeks. In Studio B, Chad Mills, WIS News 10. Just a few weeks ago, on a beach in Florida, Autumn Alston tied the knot.
It was a beautiful day, and it was so nice.
Neither Autumn nor her husband have family in Cocoa Beach. They didn't meet there. They don't have friends there either. They decided to wed there for just one reason. The newlyweds planned to hop on a cruise ship just hours after the ceremony. Their destinations, Belize and Mexico.
Oh my gosh, that water. The water is just so beautiful. I was waiting and thinking about this vacation all year long.
In fact, she says she started planning for it in January when her friends recommended a travel agent named Keisha Morgan Chaplin.
He had a friend who apparently went through Keisha before, and apparently didn't have any problems with it.
Alston says at first, as she made payments, she didn't either.
No reason to even worry at that point.
No, not at all. But I will say, though, that the entire time of trying to deal with her, it was so difficult to get in contact with her.
Alston says it became even harder to reach her after she finished paying. No boarding passes, no confirmation number, and her September 30th wedding and cruise were quickly approaching.
I need a response from you ASAP. The 28th, call me ASAP, Keisha, this is so ridiculous.
Her anxiety reached its peak the day before the wedding.
We actually left that Friday, which was September 29th, heading down to Florida. And all day we were trying to get in contact with her. Even our friends were like, do we even pack as much as we're supposed to? Because we might just be staying down for the weekend and coming back. I went ahead and packed for a whole week's worth just in case, because I was still trying to be optimistic, thinking, well, maybe she'll come through for us.
Alston says Keisha Chaplin did not.
Well, we officially actually found out at midnight, because that's when she emailed me when we were at the resort. She emailed me and said that she canceled our cruise because she said that she couldn't stand to be in detainment. And the reason being that she said that was because at that point we had emailed her and texted her and said, listen, we need our boarding passes or we're gonna get the law involved.
The next day, her smile concealed feelings of anger, betrayal, defeat.
To find out that same money that you put in somebody's hand that you worked hard for, nothing's gonna come from it. It's a slap in the face.
Denise and David Vincent are living the same nightmare. The two were hoping to cruise on October 28th. Now that the trip is paid for, they say Chaplin is almost impossible to reach. They have no boarding passes, no proof their trip was even booked.
Does this hurt you?
Yes.
They soon discovered that Chaplin was terminated back in May by a host agency that contracts travel agents. Then, the couple found out the problem was even more widespread when they logged onto Facebook and created this growing group, Prosecute Keisha Chaplin. Now, multiple law enforcement agencies are investigating complaints. At least Lexington, Richland, and Fairfield. Customers like the Vincents and Alston and all of the others on this page hope it'll produce more than justice. They want refunds and an explanation.
What is the reason for what you've been doing?
WIS tried to find out and track Chaplin down to a home in Fairfield County.
You Miss Chaplin? I'm with WIS.
Where the door
I'd like to talk to you about your travel agency, please.
was shut on us.
You're Miss Chaplin, right?
The Fairfield County Sheriff's Office had better luck when they arrested her this week.
And she is charged with breach of trust with fraudulent intent there in Fairfield County. The video you see behind me is actually video from her bond hearing yesterday there in Winsboro. Now she is in jail in Richland County and is also facing charges over there.
Because of a gag order in the case, she hadn't spoken publicly about her feelings or anything involving the case until our one-on-one interview just a couple weeks ago. To Amber Jones, each day is an eternity because of the constant grief. So 3 years, more than 1,100 days, is a pain that cannot be described.
I really miss them.
A single photo brings back endless memories for Amber Jones.
Mira, she's my mini-me. Ton, he liked to collect rocks, and I still have the last one he gave me. Gabriel couldn't stop drinking. He loved sweet tea. He was a sweet, sweet boy. I was proud of him. I'm very proud.
And no day goes by where she doesn't remember their faces, their smiles, their voices.
No, there isn't. I talk to him every night at night when I'm laying in bed. Everybody's asleep. I think that's when it's the hardest because it's all quiet. And you can't help but think. Your mind starts wandering.
Authorities say all 5 of Amber's children were either strangled or beaten to death by their father and Amber's ex-husband, Timothy Jones Jr., about 3 years ago. The news became public almost 2 weeks after the children were murdered, after Jones was arrested in Mississippi, after the small bodies were found in Alabama.
These agents that are out there right now, of course, they're seeing the worst thing you can probably imagine.
In all of my years of law enforcement, I have never seen a case like this.
Without going into detail, how horrific was this crime, and does the public realize how horrific it was?
I don't even think horrific can explain this. I don't even think that's the right word for it. The public has no idea what he did to my children. I can tell you, I know just a little bit, and the little bit that I do know haunts me.
But 3 years later, in the eyes of the law, Jones is still innocent. His death penalty trial still hasn't happened.
If I were to travel back in time to 2014, find you, and tell you that 3 years later, this case would still not have gone to trial, what would you have told me?
I would have said you were full of it. In a way, I can't even lay my babies to rest, per se, until this is brought to justice.
Do you sense some frustration from Amber about the speed at which things have traveled?
Well, no question that she's frustrated by that.
Along with attorney Hyman Rubin, Dick Harpootlian is representing Amber in a civil case against DSS.
I mean, she's suffering from PTSD, or whatever you want to call it, that makes it difficult for her to handle the frustration of losing her children, and then this process is never ending.
However, Harpootlian says the process of bringing the criminal case to trial is in good hands. Rick Hubbard took over as solicitor last year after the previous solicitor, longtime prosecutor Donnie Myers, didn't seek re-election after a DUI arrest.
I've prosecuted, when I was solicitor, 10 death penalty cases. I've defended 2. The glacial pace of the death penalty prosecution is normal. It's unfortunate, but we have to check all the boxes unless you want to do it 2 or 3 times, which unfortunately has happened a number of times in this state. So Rick Hubbard wants to do it right, and he wants to do it once, and that's going to take a little time.
Hubbard tells WIS after a number of hurdles, some out of his control, the trial date is set for February 2018.
I sit up sometimes all night long.
Amber hopes the date will hold, for her sake.
They touched everybody in a different way.
And her children's.
Solicitor Hubbard told me he understands Amber's frustration. He said a big hurdle was cleared earlier this year when a judge was assigned to the case. He also told me he'll personally help prosecute the case along with several others from his team.
Kids got a lot of their stuff in here,
For almost a year, Banks Parmley saved up for a new car with at least 6 seats.
Why don't you get your new bike out?
2 for his wife and him, and 4 more for his children. Parmley was planning to take his kids to Disney World for the first time.
Found a few cars, one really stuck out. One in West Columbia.
Last November, Parmley drove from his home in Rock Hill to S&D Auto Sales on Airport Boulevard in West Columbia, where he test drove this 2009 white Chevy Traverse and quickly realized it was the perfect car for his family's Disney trip.
We had already reserved a hotel. We planned on getting down there and paying for the tickets at the time we got down there. That way it wasn't all paid for at once, so we tried to make it kind of a process to make it affordable for us. And this car was perfect. DVD players, 7 seats, fit the family perfect.
Parmley says that same day he returned to the dealership to pay for the car in full. He says he counted out $7,500 in cash to the dealer, Serge Ratkovich.
I said, "Got the money, Serge? You got the title?" He said, "Well, I'm a dealership." And we had agreed on a price of $7,500. So he said, "Well, because I'm a dealership and so it won't affect my license, I have to process the title and I have to give you registration and tax. That's an extra $325.
Despite the surprise, documents show Parmley soon paid that fee. He left that day with the car and a 45-day temporary paper tag. Everything was good until that 45-day tag expired in early January.
January 1st comes around and no tag, no title, no registration. Call him. And he didn't answer at first. He said, it's okay. Continue to drive the car, it's fine. If you get pulled over, I'm the one that's going to be penalized for it because I didn't provide you with it. And he said, but you know, we're getting it sent off. 10 days pass. Try to call him, he doesn't answer. Text him. I said, Serge, where is this at? He said, well, I filed the paperwork, you know, we're waiting on DMV. I called the DMV. They say, sir, you're nowhere on this title. You're not registered to this car. We can't give you any information on this vehicle. And they said, you need to talk to an attorney.
So Parmley called up his family attorney, Neil Phillips.
I think it's totally unfair. It's totally unfair. He acted in good faith.
DMV looked into Parmley's case after he complained, quote, our investigation revealed the dealership is in violation, the agent wrote. That document suggests dealer Ratkovich did not have possession of the Chevy's title. Instead, according to that document, it was still owned by his lender.
And it allows them to get more inventory, allows the dealer to get additional inventory. Once the dealer sells that car, then he's able to, you know, retire the loan.
The DMV agent wrote, quote, Ratkovich, owner of the dealership, stated the dealership was experiencing financial problems due to family medical issues and was unable to pay off the lender.
So it's a lien, you know, it's a lien, which is exactly what he told me was not on the car and signed the lien affidavit. I wouldn't have bought the car if I knew it had a lien.
This complaint is not the first one against S&D. Since March of last year, almost a dozen complaints have been filed, and many of them contain similar allegations. This document from last month shows S&D has failed to deliver titles multiple times since March 2016. The dealership has been sanctioned 7 times by the DMV for title-related complaints.
There seems to be a stigma that what you're doing here is fraudulent.
If there was anything fraudulent there, where would I be now? In jail, right?
In a lengthy interview, Ratkovich explained even though he's failed to deliver titles within 45 days, he's done nothing wrong.
Okay, if I did, guess what? Then the DMV would do something to me, SLED would do something to me, the court would do something to me.
Instead, Ratkovich says he's being unfairly attacked by customers who aren't paying their bills on time. But Parmley says he paid in full.
S&D Auto Sales never provided me, still to this day, with a clear title or any form of apology.
Parmley and his attorney had to work directly with S&D's lender to get the title released, and that finally happened back in April. Coincidentally, it happened during his family's Disney trip. He had to use a different car to get there.
It's perfect for us.
As for this car, it's cost him more than money.
Days that you know, my family wasn't smiling at the dinner table. We were in confusion.
We hope to ask Ratkovich additional questions in a follow-up interview, but he stopped returning our texts and calls at one point. Even though he mentioned that DMV and SLED aren't doing anything to him, we found out that's not true. SCDMV tells me it is conducting an administrative investigation. SLED tells us it's investigating S&D Auto Sales as well.